There is this expectation in the world of technology that we will be able to get more for our money next year than we can get this year, or that we'll be able to get today's features for a better price tomorrow. GoPro apparently has a different philosophy, having introduced the Hero6 Black at $500, $100 above the Hero5 Black, which remains on in the product lineup at $400, the same price it was when it launched a year ago.
$500 is steep for an action camera. You could buy an entry-level DSLR kit for that much money. So the important question is it worth it? Even though the two cameras look identical, the Hero6 brings a number of improvements over the Hero5, many of which are thanks to a new custom-designed processor called the GP1. With it, frame rates have been boosted across the board. The Hero6 can now shoot 4K resolution at 60 frames per second and 1080p at 240 frames per second. Now, the Yi 4K Plus also shoots 4K 60, but its 1080p tops out at 120 frames per second.
60 frames per second can be good for capturing very fast action, and it's also good for being able to play back at 30 frames per second for a 2x slow motion. But unless you have a monster of a computer, it can be more trouble than it's worth. In 4K 60 mode, the Hero6 uses the new HEVC codec. The same is used in newer iPhones running iOS 11. Older phones may not support it at all, and older computers will struggle just to play it back, let alone edit it. The reason GoPro uses HEVC is likely to do with space savings. So at 30 frames per second, 4K video is recorded at a bitrate of about 60 megabits per second. Now you jump up to 4K 60, and that bitrate only increases by 1/3 to about 79 megabits per second, where you would expect it to need to double in order to maintain the same quality. So despite the relatively modest increase in bitrate, the quality of the individual frames looks identical. GoPro says the Hero6 also boasts improved dynamic range, which basically refers to how much detail a camera can see from the shadows to the highlights of a scene before something simply turns to pure black or pure white. With ProTune turned on and shooting in the flat color profile, we did notice a modest improvement to shadow detail, but the more noticeable difference was the color. The Hero6 records much richer color than the Hero5, which makes the footage look better straight out of the camera. So one small drawback of the Hero6 is that the video quality is still a little bit soft, which belies what 4K resolution is actually capable of. Now, you could argue that pixel level sharpness isn't that important in an action camera, but then you'd also have to say that 4K really isn't important in an action camera. But where the Hero6 really shines and starts to earn its price is in the revamped image stabilization. It now works at 4K resolution, although not at 60 frames per second, and it does an incredible job. This is the best electronic stabilization we've ever seen in an action camera, easily beating out both the Hero5 Black and the Yi 4K Plus. GoPro compared it to using a gimbal, and after testing it ourselves, we have to say that wasn't much of an exaggeration. It's really good. And honestly, this does a lot more to improve image quality than a sharper lens would have. A perfectly crisp video is pointless if it's painful to watch because of how shaky it is. So getting back to the question of whether or not the Hero6 is worth $500, especially when the Yi 4K Plus is only around $340 right now. In an ideal world, we would have seen the Hero6 introduced at $400, while the Hero5 would have dropped to $300. Early adopters with the cash to spare will be happy with the Hero6, no doubt, but the rest of us may be better off waiting to see if the price drops. Still, we have no problem saying the Hero6 Black is the new action camera to beat, and after having used one, it would be hard to go back.